we were very impressed with what we saw as far as the hydro mining solution goes. And when we bought them from Bitmain, we got them from $14 a terahash. If you go net of operating costs, say you assume a 5 cent per kilowatt hour operating cost, and I use that number as a discipline in our model, any miner should use that. What is your ROI number of days? And it was about a 10-month ROI after cost when we locked in the order at that price, which is phenomenal. That means your ASICs would completely repay themselves within 10 months. And if you run them for 3 years, that means you're just free cash flowing, right? We'll talk more about the ROI model later, which is really the only model you should be doing if you're mining Bitcoin. Otherwise, what's the point? If you're not ROIing and making more Bitcoin or more money than what you spent on a miner, you should just bought Bitcoin in the first place, right? And we've seen a lot of miners destroy capital because they're constantly just prematurely upgrading machines, etc.
Welcome back to the Financial Fox show. This is Steffi, and today I have Aydin Kilic, CEO of Hive Digital Technologies. Well, they have made a great announcement over the last week, and I really need to get Aydin back on the show to talk about it. So, before we get into the interview, just a quick summary of what Hive Digital Technology does. They are a public listed company building sustainable blockchain and AI infrastructure with 100% green energy. Hive was the first crypto miner to go public in 2017 and the first one to implement an AI strategy. They hold over 2,800 Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they have operation in Canada, Sweden, and soon Paraguay. They said the main priority is to build and scale a lean company that delivers value to shareholders, but also transform communities where they operate. Check them out at hivedigitaltechnologies.com. Now, couple of things before I get Aydin on. If you are watching our interview but you are not yet subscribed to our channel, please take a moment to do so, and also follow us on social media. You will find all the links in the description. Remember, your support is crucial to grow the channel so we can educate more about crypto. Finally, remember that the content on the show is for informational purposes only and not intended as financial advice. Any opinion expressed by me or my guests are ours alone, and you should not act solely on the back of them. As always, do your own research, level up your skills, and be accountable for your own decision. With that being said, let's get to the interview. Aydin, great to have you back on the show. So, how is it going?
It's going great, Stefania. We just made the biggest release I think Hive's ever made. 4xing from 26 exahash to 25 exahash our production this year through a phenomenal acquisition in Paraguay, the 200 megawatt site that's nearing completion from Bitfarms. And we're just incredibly thrilled because it's going to bring us to approximately 500 million of annual revenue and about 300 million of annual cash flow from mining operations. So this really puts us into, I think, the stratosphere. It's going to re-rate Hive because it will bring us, even if you just look at it on a linear basis, approximately $1.5 billion market cap. If you just look at how much exahash we're producing today, compared to 25 exahash. And I think moreover, what gets really attractive is that there's a positive re-rating for the stock because a lot of institutions don't look at the stock if it's under $1 billion in market cap. So I think directionally it's great from a capital markets point of view. Strategically, from an operational point of view, we have our existing 100 megawatt site in Paraguay that's scheduled for completion in May of this year. And on top of that, we've got this additional 200 megawatts. So we'll have 300 megawatts in Paraguay. We'll be the largest operator in the country and one of the largest in Latin America. So I'm really excited about that. Very excited about that.
Right, now I know why you were so pumped in our previous interview with your Bitcoin glasses. Well, listen, this is...
I know, I couldn't say anything. I was like working on the deal.
We know, but I think you were communicating the vibes, and definitely, with this greatest announcement this week, I think, is really executing on strategy, so it's fantastic. So I think... let's give a little bit of context because you have done some strategic purchase over the last few months to be able to actually operate these sites that you are bringing on stream. So I think it would be nice to kind of like give a little bit of context on that. And also what I think will be interesting to know is those sites they will need to be built and they will require certain amount of capital. That many investors will say, right, this is all good news, but actually, do they have the money to do that? Or maybe they need to go back to the market or thinking about some kind of like other ways to get capital in.
Yeah, I can actually start with that because I know that's top of mind for a lot of investors. First of all, we have 100 million left on our ATM. In addition to that, we have 100 million on our base shelf. So that's 200 million of funding capacity. In addition to that, we have $300 million of Bitcoin on our balance sheet. So if you look at that collectively between our funding ability and our treasury, that's 500 million. Now, the ASICs, let's talk about the ASICs for a second. So we announced already in December that we made a massive order with Bitmain. It was a landmark purchase of 8.6 exahash of the S21 hydro miner. And these things are rockets. They're 15 joules a terahash. And they come in a self-contained solution with a dry chilling system attached to it. So very well attuned for the environment in Paraguay. Built at scale, they're using these in Ethiopia and all over the world in climates where it's a bit warmer. And so we did our diligence. I was in Paraguay in December, and went to go see the progress of our own site. Of course, we went to go visit the Bitfarm site. We actually looked at a couple other sites beyond that. So we're keeping very busy. We go down there. We've got a very active management team. I'm a very technical CEO. I love getting into the details. Frank is great at diplomacy. Frank has met the president of the country. So what I'm trying to say here is that we really did thorough diligence from a regulatory, diplomatic, and technical standpoint. And so we were very impressed with what we saw as far as the hydro mining solution goes. And when we bought them from Bitmain, we got them from $14 a terahash. Okay, if you go net of operating costs, say you assume a 5 cent per kilowatt hour operating cost, and I use that number as a discipline in our model. Any miner should use that. What is your ROI number of days? And it was about a 10-month ROI after cost when we locked in the order at that price, which is phenomenal. That means your ASICs would completely repay themselves within 10 months. And if you run them for 3 years, that means they're just free cash flowing, right? We'll talk more about the ROI model later, which is really the only model you should be doing if you're mining Bitcoin. Otherwise, what's the point? If you're not ROIing and making more Bitcoin or more money than what you spent on the miner, you should just bought Bitcoin in the first place, right? And we've seen a lot of miners destroy capital because they're constantly just prematurely upgrading machines, etc. Now, coming back on our ASIC strategy and our capital needs, the way it works is like this. It was such a good deal on those ASICs, we actually bought an oversized order. So we bought 15 exahash of gear. Now, our existing facility in Paraguay, the 100 megawatts, plus our facilities in Sweden and Canada, that would get us to 13 exahash. So we actually had 2 exahash of extra hydros, but we already knew we were expanding in Paraguay and looking at other opportunities vis-a-vis Bitfarms. So we're like, let's get some extra ASICs so that, when we acquire that site, boom, we've already got. So 13 exahash from our existing sites. We have 2 exahash of ASICs that already can go to the Bitfarm site. That gets us to 15. So now to get to 25, we just need to buy 10 exahash more of ASICs. So the 10 exahash of ASICs, if you use a nominal $14-15 a terahash, that's about $150 million. By the way, the order of the 8.5 exahash from Bitmain, right, was a total $120 million order, roughly, and we have already paid up 35 million of that. So you got, a little over 80 million from that original order, another 150 million to get to the full 25 exahash. So that's $230 million for us to get to the full 25 exahash, right? And so that's really exciting. And so again, when you look at 100 million left on the ATM, another 100 million on our base shelf, and our ATM has been performing wonderfully, plus $300 million of Bitcoin on the balance sheet, we're in a very good position. I think we're well funded to complete these acquisitions and fully operate them with ASICs. And by the way, we'll be 3% of the network. If we're 25 exahash, we'll be 3% of the global network, assuming current difficulty, and we would be producing 13.5 Bitcoin per day, which would be over $1.3 million per day of revenue, which is phenomenal, and about 60 to 70% gross mining margin, on a global average. The reason why is our fleet average is going to be 16.5 joules per terahash, which will be one of the best operating fleets in terms of energy efficiency of all the miners. So we're going to have a modernized fleet, which we got an exceptional deal, locking in these ASICs at very attractive prices. And by the way, when I tell you 10-month ROI, that was, I think, a $55 hash price, right? So we're at $60 hash price now. So if Bitcoin does rally and we get to a strong bull market where you see $80 hash price, $100 hash price, okay, that ROI is going to shrink from 10 months to 6 months to maybe 5 months, So we're really excited because in crypto mining, you have these 4-year cycles. Let's look back for a second. 2016, the halving was in June 2016. Back then, the S9 was the miner everybody used. The bull market came the following summer, in summer of 2017, which is when Hive went public, and I took my own company public. But the all-time high was in December of 2017. And I'd raised $20 million, and I was going through the listing process out in Fidelity's office in December 2017 when Bitcoin was 19,000. Okay, so think about that. The halving was in summer of 2016. The bull market came a year later, and the all-time high came in December. Now, fast forward to the next halving cycle, 2020. Okay, April 2020. So it was actually May 2020. The bull market came this time in February. It actually came at the very end of December, early January. Bitcoin started to rip. It went back up to 10, 19,000. By February 2021, it was over 60,000, right? And we had a phenomenal bull run. Hash price was $300 to $400 a petahash a day. $300 to $400 a petahash a day. People were printing money. And then the next all-time high was November 2021. So look at that pattern, which has repeated itself. So you have a halving, and it's the following year, right? Usually 9 to 12 months later where the bull market kicks in and you'll see one or maybe two all-time high spikes. So now for us, we've seen in January of 2025, and our halving was just in April with the inauguration of President Trump, which I think is great news for anyone who's kind of got an entrepreneurial or business outlook or crypto. We hit a new all-time high of 108,000, but I think we have the balance of this year for that catalyst to really see the bull market come in. And so we're at about a $60 hash price now, depending who you talk to. I mean, hash price is not going to go back up to $300 to $400 a petahash a day. There's this effect that I call the commodification of hash rate. So what that is more hash rate gets produced more cheaply with time. So on a different metric, which is the dollar per kilowatt hour, your energy revenue, you sort of see similar levels, right? Like we're about, 12 cents a kilowatt hour for, an S21 right now. But in a bull market, we've seen those numbers go to 20 to 30 cents a kilowatt hour, right? So then you back it out and say, okay, well, given the machine's current efficiencies, where do we see that? So I think a real bull run this time around might be between $80 to $120 a day per petahash per day hash price. So basically 1.5 to double the profitability that we're seeing today. And hopefully that sustains for like 9 months. And if that sustains for 9 months, again, the ASICs that we bought, net after cost, we're going to see 6 to 9 month ROIs. It's going to be phenomenal. And then you're just, printing money for the rest of it. So having the hash rate up and running with the bull market approaching, I think, it's the savvy investors, I think, that are paying attention and connecting the dots with Hive.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the important points is like everybody is trying to time the market, which is there are the things that you can do, but there are patterns like you show, they are repeating themselves. So question is, when are you seeing kind of the peak? And I know you can't, pick up a month, but what are you thinking about so an investor can understand where we are in this cycle?
So I would say, historically we've seen peaks in and around November, December. All-time highs, right? So I think we just saw, but in 2021 we saw 2 all-time highs. We saw one in February and November. Well, guess what? 2025 we just saw a new all-time high in January with the inauguration. That was more of a catalyst. I still think, if the U.S. does a treasury of Bitcoin, and they buy 800,000 Bitcoin, I really think we could see $150,000 to $200,000 Bitcoin. And just a quick note on that too. I just want to outline, I think right now everybody knows Hive's an incredible value proposition, but I think it's the savvy investor that's connecting the dots and say, okay, this company has been mined profitably through all the bear markets over the last 3+ years. They have 300 million of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. They have an ROIC model. We've had exhibited the lowest dilution, right? Always going for the lowest cost of capital, having that discipline to scale the business accretively. And everybody was like, but you need scale, you need scale. By the way, we pulled this off with all focus on green energy, which is another reason that we love Paraguay so much. And strategically, we added General John Evans, a retired 3-star Army general, to our global advisory committee. So that's actually really exciting. We press released that last week. So it just helps with international diplomacy, when we're in Latin America. And, he knows so much about defense and national security, etc. And data centers are becoming more and more national security interest.
Exactly. And then, if we look at the market cap, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not even $400 million.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's where really savvy investors are looking at that, connecting the dots on the fundamentals. And I think that what's happening is we do not participate in those convertible debentures. There's clearly a lot of shorting going on right now. Like if you look at the borrow, right? So if you talk to a trader, what is the borrow on our stock right now? The cost of the borrow is relatively high because if all the crypto miners, think of it this way, collectively have a market cap of say 20 to 25 billion, Marathon is, maybe 6 or 7 billion. You got Riot. So add everybody up to 20, 25 billion is the total market cap. But you look at how many of these convertible debentures were done to buy Bitcoin in December, January. It's like $5 to $10 billion of these deals were done. They were massive. And so what happens is these hedge funds are not in it because they're getting a 1% coupon and hoping Bitcoin goes up. No, they want it, they're short. And so what happens is they can't get enough of the stock. If, CleanSpark does a $600 million deal, or Mara does whatever, Bitdeer's done, everybody's done them. We have not. We looked at it very closely and we're like, okay, you're buying Bitcoin at the peak, and some of these guys are doing a $500 million convert, but they're spending $150 million on cap calls and to prevent shorting. So they're saying that they're buying back the stock, but they're almost preempting the shorting. But what that means is when you're doing all those share buybacks and cap calls, you only get $350 million of net proceeds, but you still have to pay back $500 million in a few years. So where is that going to come from? You better hope Bitcoin goes at 200 grand, right? If you're buying it at 100 grand, or Michael Saylor can pull it off, but these companies, you got to know, you're not Michael Saylor. So I think what we see is the real play is that there's a big borrow, and companies or funds will borrow Hive stock as a proxy for others. Everyone just lumped in, they're all crypto miners, they all track with Bitcoin. So we could go, if we need to cover a short position because we just went into a massive convert deal on miner X, it doesned matter. Okay, we're going to obviously borrow against their stock, but all these other guys. But what it's done is it's created a lot of liquidity for some of these guys' stocks, because you're getting a new class of investors or new set of institutions that play this debenture game. So I think that there's definitely shorting that's suppressing our stock, and I think that we want to do everything we can, telling the story to the street, to squeeze that short. And I think that when Hive stock gets re-rated to where it should be, as we build out and execute. Quick thing on timeline, right? The first 100 megawatts of our Bitfarms acquisition, we're going to close this quarter, right? We're Jan 31, so we've got 2 months. We're going to close in the next 2 months. Energization is April 1st. So that 100 megawatts will come online. ASICs will be installed April, May, right? That's another 6 exahash. Our site is going to be complete, 100 megawatts in May. That's another 6 exahash. So before the summer, before June, that's going to be 12.5 exahash, by the way. And with our upgrades to our existing air-cooled fleet with Canaan, by March, we're going to be at 6.8 exahash. So do the math really quick. 6.8 exahash plus 12.5 exahash. We're going to be at over 19 exahash by June. And then the second 100 megawatt phase will be in August, September. So we're, this is exciting, Stefania. We're talking Q2 19 exahash and Q3 25 exahash.
It's amazing, and you already have got a few analysts that they had a target price between $6 and $10. That was before the Bitfarms.
Correct.
And so I would be interested to see actually what the re-rating is going to look like.
Me too. I think in a lot of conversation I've had with the smart analysts and some bankers who've done great industry analysis, because again, once we kind of crest over $1 billion market cap, we get re-rated because there's just more institutions that will buy that stock. And by the way, we announced the domicile of Hive to move to San Antonio, so we'll be have index exposure, which I think is great. But they've suggested 1.5 to 2 billion market cap is where we get re-rated. So is that a $15 to $20 stock? I certainly think so. As Frank would say, if you're not long, you're wrong.
God. Well,
he says it better than me.
I think 2025 looks like to be incredible and a game changer here for Hive. Now, I know you're busy, and thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing, all your insight on the recent development. I want to have you back to talk more about AI, and also when you are back from Paraguay as well. I know you are going soon, so
we're going to go down in a few weeks ahead of the closing, so it's really exciting.
So I'm looking forward to see lots of pictures. So please
post.
post.
Yeah.
And then I will get you back on the show to tell us everything behind the scenes. Aydin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefania. Thanks for the support. Great questions.